Hi, my name is Tim. I'm Senior Application Specialist at ATR Soft. In today's webinar, we will have a look at external data and how to access it inside SolidWorks. With me today, I have my wingman, Sales Manager, Mr. Francois Simon, who will answer your questions. You can use the chat box in the GoToWebinar panel. I will make room after the session for more questions to let you follow this presentation better. We expect the webinar to take somewhere in the range of 20 minutes, and as usual, we are recording this session and will be making it available online later on. Okay, let's get started. We can get data from a lot of places. The rule is if it can be added as a linked server in SQL Server, we can pull data from it. But we can also use other sources like a cloud solution database, for instance, if the vendor provides API for it. The process is pretty simple in theory, at least. I will show the steps and try to teach you what you need to do to define everything. This is obviously going to result in a webinar being slightly more advanced than what we normally offer, but this is a great benefit and one you should consider to some extent at least. Some customers are using lookup lists to get data from, and in practical terms, this could be abandoned in the favor of a single Excel workbook, for instance, or an Access database. But there is no time to waste. Let's just bring it on. Okay, so in this session, we are going to use some external data sources. The first one is going to be the materials Excel file. And if I open up this one, you can see that we have a column header, and then we have a unique column. In this case, I call this the item. So this column contains unique numbers. Then I have type, thickness, length, and width. One thing that I want to teach you right away is if you are going to use Excel, I do recommend that you highlight the entire workbook and set the number format or the entire cell format as a text, because that will return strings into your SQL server. And yeah, technically, I think this is just a better approach. You can add as many sheets to one Excel file as you want, and these will be treated basically like tables in a SQL server. So this is the first one. We are also going to look at an Access database. Now, the Access database might be more suitable for more advanced stuff because you can do a lot more in an Access database, I think. But the principles are the same. We have a unique ID column. We have field IDs, and you can rename these as you want. And then we have the values that we are going to return. I want to show you like a demonstration first. So I want to go into custom tools and SolidWorks and show this live. So creating my first new part here is going to be the bottle, and I do apologize. I should probably rename this template into can, but that is how it is. So in custom tools properties, we can access these two sheets. Now I made a small profile, so the materials is going to look up the Excel file. If I go and press this button, I am going to search the database items that exist in this location. So I can run a full search. No, I cannot, because maybe what is wrong? I mean, this was just working 2 minutes ago. Anyway, I'm not going to do that for materials. I'm going to look at the cars instead. That is the Access database. Then for the Excel file, I will show you that when we configure that, and you can see that instead. So let's run a search. Okay, so now we got live data from our Access database. If I go into my Access database and I add a new item, call that a start, like that. Might need to save that as well. And then I can run the search again and this is going to return live search. So we are actually looking into that data store live. So whatever we change, we can update this view and get what we need. Now I can go in and search for like brand and run the search, and that will filter that list. So it's a very user-friendly interface to look into, and I think it's probably better than using our default lookup lists. But anyway, I'm going to create a link for this one. So when I link a property, I can double click it or I can link it. These values are going to be returned into my user interface and then onto the file. So all of this was added to my file. So when I save this one now, it was saved to my predefined location. I can have a look at the properties and I can see that everything exists correctly in here. If I go into my database and I then change the Audi, I think I picked the A6, let's call that an A8, and save that one. Then I can open up the file again. Now there is a delay. Default is, I think, 10 minutes. So we update this every 10 minutes. For this presentation, I set this interval to be like 5 seconds, so we don't have to wait too much time. So when I open up this file now, you will probably instantly see that it's getting dirty. And this is because we updated the properties. So if I go into the properties now, we can see that now it's an A8. Okay. If I go into this database and I call this RS5 and I save my database, and then I, for some reason, go in here and make some discrepancies. I could call this S4, for instance. So now my two databases are somewhat mismatched. So my part file has one set of data and the database has a different set of data. Now, if I open up this part file again, we should be prompted for updating these properties, and we do. So now we have a conflict in the part file compared to what we have in our database. And we can actually see what is going to happen here. In this case, the part file has an attribute called car model in SolidWorks that is called S4. We can see the modified date and time, and then we can see the value in the external database as well. So if we want to, we can then select to update this property and everything will be good. We can just save the file. And if I look at the properties, then the car model is going to match that of the external database. If I'm going to be a little bit more bold, let me have a look at the database. So now I have some IDs. Let me just use the ID number 3. Okay, so I'm going to create a part file. I will do that without custom tools, just to mimic what happens to legacy data. So disable custom tools. And then I'm going to create a new part file. And I'm going to manually enter some values. So that could be car ID 3. So treat this as a legacy file. This was done before we made this integration. Now I'm going to save this one. And let's save it into the external data. That one. Okay, so now we have a part file. It only contains the car ID, and if I'm going to open this one with custom tools enabled, we can actually update this one. So let me just re-enable custom tools here. And then I'm going to open up this file again, so part number 4. And when I do so, please notice that something is going to happen to the file. let's disable this one again. I mean, this is going to work, I promise you. Just give me a second and you will see. So let's just create an empty part file. Add in the car ID of 1. And save that one. Okay. Adding in custom tools again should do the trick. So yeah, we want to log in. And then at this point, we should have already read the references, so we know what to be looking for. And now, crossed fingers, when I open this one, yeah, it became dirty immediately. Not sure what the issue was on the first part. But now I can do two things. I can look at the properties from custom tools side, or I can open the properties from here. And you'll see that these properties got relinked. So we are going to find this ID in our database and then pull in the data for it. If I look at the custom tools properties, these properties are also set here, obviously. Okay, with a few small quirks, we managed to get this working. But how did we do? I mean, how did we get it working? Let me try and explain what you need to do and how to set this up. So I'm going to open up Custom Tools Administration. This is our starting point. So this is now the technical part of it. To define a database, you need to log in first and then go to the external databases. Now I already have the materials and cars defined in here, and now I want to create a link to my demo link Excel file. There is a trick that I want to share. If you hold down Shift key and then right click, then you can release the Shift key and you can copy this as a path. So now we copy the path for that location. And now I can create a new database connection. So we call this one demo. The provider is going to be, in this case, a Microsoft Office 12. And for provider strings, my best advice is to go into Google or a search engine and then type in linked server and then the type of document you want to link to. And then you will find everything you need. You will see the provider you need to use, and if you need to use a provider string as well. So for this one, I want to paste in the path that I just copied. You can use the default custom tool server connection credentials, or you can have a specific user in the SQL server, so you can use that one. I'm not going to go into details on the permission and everything on the SQL server, so this is going to be like it is. We are going to connect with custom tool server connection credentials. For the provider string, in this case, because it's an Excel file, we need to type in Excel 12.0. If this is going to work out great, we will see no error, so hitting OK, and we created that one now. You can then continue to work from this interface, or you can go into SolidWorks, which I probably prefer, and go to the options from in here. In the profile options, you need to define the database search group. Right now, we have materials and we have cars. I'm going to add a new one. So in this case, we want to connect to the demo database. And you can see that these are highlighted, or highlighted, they are added like a database server instance. And for this one, we can call this a demo. And then I can expand this server and see what is inside of it. So in the demo server, we have two tables, accounts and projects. If I open up the Excel file, you can see we have one sheet called accounts and one sheet called projects. Common for these two is that I defined an ID for it, as well as for the projects. Now, maybe you use different numbers in here. Maybe you don't want to use a unique ID column, and maybe there is something else being unique in each row. You can pick that as your ID qualifier, but you need to have a unique ID, obviously, to find the correct row. For this one, I want to connect to the accounts. So I select the accounts, and in this portion, I can select which one contains the unique ID. And this is, in my case, the ID column. Now, there is one thing you need to know, and that is advanced settings. We need to have something called a quoting identifier. And we have these two to pick from, and we are going to use this one because it's an Excel file. And how would you ever guess that? Well, if you press the help button, you can actually see in here that for square brackets, we are going to use that connecting to a Microsoft SQL Server and also Microsoft Excel. And if you are going to connect to an Oracle, then you need to have the quotation marks. So my advice is look in the help for whatever questions you may have. But that should be pretty much it. Now we can connect to this database. We have this portion down here. Now, I showed in the demonstration that if a value change in the database, then we can update the values. And I showed that if I have an old file with a property contained in that database, we can update the other properties automatically. And this is what we are controlling in this one. So enable updating of linked custom properties when the value in linked database has changed. Most likely we want to have that. And if we are going to use legacy data, then we probably want to use this one as well. Mind you, when you are using these two settings, you need to install the custom tools server service. And you probably want to do that on your SQL Server. Now, this is a standalone installation, so I have everything locally. I would not recommend that for a normal user, not even a single user. But if I look in here, I have the custom tools server service. And from here, I can select the server properties. How do I connect to my SQL Server? I can select the database, which this is going to refresh intervals from. And this is, in my case, the external data. And then you also need to know that you have to activate the license because this is a licensed product, the server service. And when that is done, you should be good to go. So now everything is defined. I have my database search group. But how do I use those in the profile? Well, very basic is to create a group. So demo. And I'm going to add some attributes. 10, 10. Just give it a name. We can always correct these names afterwards. To make the lookup, to have the button inside custom tools to access the database, you need to go into button function and get database item. Then we need to tell it what search group to use. In this case, it's my demo. Which column do we want to return? Well, I want to return the ID. I can add one more. Let's call that 20. Now, we do not need the button on this one. We just need to get the linked values from that same row. So I'm going to go for demo, get the account. I'm going to add one more. And for this one, we want to get probably the contact. We can reorder these to make more sense. And then when I test this live, it should probably work, but you never know. So the bottle again, and going to properties. We now have this group called demo, and we have one button for the number 10 item. 20 and 30 will be populated automatically using like a list key value. So if I search my database, I can see the company and the contact, and I can add this one in if I want to. If I want to have the phone number as well, then I just go into my options, go to model properties, and then I add one more property, number 40 for instance. And this time I want to have from the demo the phone number. And it is that easy to set it up. I mean, it really doesn't take a whole lot of effort. So now when I run the search, we get everything we want. I think I exceeded the time of the 20 minutes, so that is how it is when everything is not working accordingly. But this is all I had to show you for today. Our next webinar will be related to a new feature that you get in Custom Tools 2019 SP1, the export cut list items. This will take place on March 7th at same time as today. So make sure that you clear this day because this is going to be a world premiere. We are open for questions when the recording is stopped, but first I want to thank you all for attending this webinar, and I hope to see all of you for the next one. Thank you and have a nice day.
We are in the life-saving business. We kill your routines before they kill you.